Dallas Cowboys are division champs. Highland Park Scots are state champs for high school, and your son was the quarterback. How did you divide your time between those two teams?
Well, the great news is John Stephen and the Highland Park Scots have a great coach in Coach Allen, great general manager, athletic director, and Coach Ringo. I was just a spectator, and so obviously there were activities before and after games and things that the parents did to support their kids, but didn't require a lot of preparation for me. I was just a cheerleader for John Stephen. On the flip side of that, obviously, a lot of my work, and especially day work and day job, is obviously working with the Cowboys and our football team, trying to make us the very best possible team we can be.
Tell me how you learned that he was going to start.
Well, it was I was sitting at training camp, and it was, of course, early out there, about 8 in the morning, or 9 in the morning actually, and they were finishing up practice because they had early morning practices. And I looked down at my phone; it was going off, and it was my son. And anyway, he said, "Dad, I got some good news." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I, really wasn't expecting anything. I just thought he's going to say, "Hey, I had a great day of practice," because he did, communicate quite regularly. "Hey, how'd practice go?" And he said, "Well, I really got some good news for you." And I said, "Well, what?" He goes, "Well, they hadn't really named me the number one quarterback, but from here on out, I'm going with the first huddle." And I was obviously ecstatic. I knew there was a lot of work, that had to be done in terms of John Stephen, and that's exactly what I told him. I said,
5 or 6
I'm
months.
so happy for you, but you still got to put your foot on the gas and work at it and keep continuing to work hard to be the very best player you can be." And of course, very joyous moment for me. But he
5 or
was
6
very
months have passed, and I don't see your reaction has decreased much from when you told me that you teared up when you heard it the first time.
Yeah. Well, every man who has kids, we all know want good things to happen to their children, and obviously it was a very special moment. I knew how hard he had worked, what he had sacrificed. He had given up lacrosse. He had done some things to really focus on, trying to be the quarterback at Highland Park, and it was certainly a special time for him, for me, for my wife, who has done so much for our kids. She sacrificed, her life. She could have been a very successful executive if she wanted to go that direction. But she's been a wonderful mother, and to have something like that happen to your son is obviously special.
We've seen hundreds of pictures, probably, and quite a few videos after Highland Park wins the state championship, and everybody is swarming onto the field, and you have got John Stephen wrapped in a hug, and before you step away where the mics can pick it up, you're right in his ear. Without being too personal, what were you telling your son at that moment?
Well, the first thing I told him was how much I love him. And then, the other thing I just told him, "You played a great game," but I said, "They can't take this away from you. You'll always be a champion."
You have 3 daughters and a son. How many of their teams have you coached? Anybody got a number on that?
Well, it's just a passion. I think I visited with you a little bit, Alan, that, when I grew up, my father coached me, and it meant so much to me.
Did he coach you in Y ball?
He coached me in Y football, and he was the head football coach and traveled back and forth to do it. And I felt like he was doing me a huge favor. He later said, that as it turns out, he was doing it more for himself than he was for me, as much as he enjoyed it. But and I feel the same way. But all my kids I coached. My daughters played football, soccer, basketball, and I did not coach lacrosse. My wife pointed that out. I do remember that. But I coached them every year when they were in YMCA until they were ready to go on and play middle school.
Jerry Jones bent a rule that his father had and thought you wouldn't have to get a regular job if you treated your football-like job. Yeah. Did that plan hit a snag?
Well, first of all, I give him all the credit for understanding my passion for the game of football, and he knew how bad I not only wanted to play at the high school level, but my goal and dream too was to play in college. And he said, if that's what you want to do, then you're going to spend the time and treat it like a job. Well, unfortunately, you asked the question. I had a bad day at work, and I thought he was not in the area. And one of the things was I had to not be around the house. I needed to be working all day. And one day he came home, middle of the day. He wasn't out of town, as I suspected, and he came home to me in the swimming pool with a group of about 30 other kids, and we were having a nice little swimming party. And as we were enjoying ourselves in the pool, they were loud. We had music, and I was one of the loudest, enjoying the moment. And as things started to progress, I noticed that people started just staring at my house, and one by one, the octave, the sound level started to drop in the pool. And I said, well, what's going on here? And I looked up, and my father was sitting on the porch, and he was giving me one of these. And I just said, oh my gosh. And I looked around to all my friends, and I said, hey, guys, girls, the party's over. I've got to have a little visit up here with my father. And he said, Stephen, he goes, I've got a suit out of your closet. You go put it on, clean up. And he said, we're going on a little job interview. Well, I had no idea what he was talking about, and didn't want to say much because I knew I wasn't in a good position to say anything. And so we got in that car, and he said, well, we're headed over to Wendy's. Mr. Hammer at the time owned the Wendy's, and he was a friend of Jerry's. And
Jerry Hammer.
Said, Jerry Hammer, we're going to pull up, and we're going to have a little visit with Mr. Hammer about you having a job during the day at Wendy's. You need to get your work ethic. Obviously, you couldn't handle being your own boss, so we'll just have you report every morning to Wendy's and see how that goes. So we went in, we met Mr. Hammer. He kind of walked me through the process of the training program and what I'd be doing, cleaning out the grills and the griddles and the grease pits. And of course, I was saying, how have I got myself in this position? And
saying that to yourself.
Saying that to myself. And I was very attentive. And at the end of the interview, Mr. Hammer says, well, I think I'll hire you. You've got a job here at Wendy's. Congratulations. Well, I shook my hand. Yes, sir. Thank you. He said, I expect to see you here at 8 in the morning. Well, I think Jerry had a visit with him. We get back in the car. He goes, hey, Stephen, you fired up about this job? And well, yeah, yes, sir, I'll be ready to go to work. And he goes, well, you learning anything from this? And I said, yes, I have. And he goes, well, what? And he goes, well, I shouldn't have been home. I should have been working. And he goes, well, you know what? I'm a big believer in, maybe a second chance. And he said, do you think if, already talked to Mr. Hammer, we went through the interview, I've already told him that we were going to do this, and he said, if you think you can get it right, I'm going to give you one more chance. And I can promise you I was never within 5 miles of my house for the rest of my summer workouts and jobs during my next 2 years. But it was a valuable lesson. It was certainly a point well made. It was a point that needed to be made, and it's certainly something that I learned from.
When this Cowboy season began, Dak Prescott was third-string quarterback, and then some injuries happened. When you were a sophomore in high school, you were second string at Little Rock Catholic High, and there's a similar scenario. What happened to you as a sophomore?
There was a senior in front of me who I had the utmost respect for. He's a great leader on the football team. And, they made a tough decision right before the season started after one of our scrimmages to start me ahead of the senior. Now, the senior he was going to be a wingback, so he started in the backfield as well. His name was Frank Tracy. But, obviously that's a tough situation for a young player, whether it's a Dak Prescott or a young high school player, when you ultimately get put in a position ahead of people that you respect and are leaders on the football team. And you grow from it, you learn from it. There's a lot of accountability, but it makes you a better person at the end of the day. And, I think a better leader, a better teammate when you show that type of and have that type of respect for seniority on your football team.
You had a senior wide receiver. Would you have changed your play calling if you'd known he was going to marry your sister?
Well, he was always a good friend and obviously one of the best football players on our team. And
shy.
He was shy. And my brother-in-law, I should have pointed that out, but he and I were not only football teammates at Little Rock Catholic, but went on to play at Arkansas. He did as well, and then we were fraternity brothers. And then, of course, he went down the road of pursuing my beautiful sister, Charlotte, and the rest is history. But he was certainly a great teammate and a guy that I loved to throw the football to. We actually both went both ways. I was a safety and he was a corner, and
So
we
you
just
played
didn't quite win
together.
a championship together.
You were recruited by Lou Holtz,
Yes.
play for University of Arkansas. So he must have thought highly of you as a high school quarterback. Did you ever win a high school state championship?
No, I did not. I was not even close, unfortunately. I hate to say this, but
I'm just checking.
we didn't even make it to the playoffs, and I'm sure ultimately that's why I ended up playing more safety rover at Arkansas than I was a quarterback. I love to play the position, but we just never got anything accomplished. As we all know, how hard it is to win a championship at any level, whether it's high school, whether it's college or pro.
I'm
To win a
throwing this-
championship is special.